Hello, and welcome to the Dad Schooling Podcast. I am your host, Fatherhood Reforged, or Alec, and our guest today is Joseph Smith. How you doing, man?
Doing good. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. This is a fantastic opportunity to connect with you properly. I know we've talked quite a bit in on the server, and we've had the odd interaction here and there on Twitter over the years. Um, And I want to thank you. You've been really active in the server, and it's been great. Loads of advice, loads of laughs, loads of stories, sharing lots of amazing stuff for us. And I really wanted to have you on just to talk a bit more about those amazing aspects of your life. Do you want to just give a brief introduction though, first, before we go any further?
Yeah. I'll start out by saying I love the server. It's an awesome thing you got going there. But I'm Joseph. On Twitter, most people know me as either Padre or Homestead Padre, and there's a whole backstory on why I have that name. Um, my official account is Old Paths Homestead, and yeah, it's most of what I talk about is small scale agriculture or big ag news, awareness, things like that. A little bit in the parenthood. Um, Probably going to make that more content going forward. But yeah, this is me. I have a small farm in South Mississippi, 16 miles north of the Gulf of Mexico, and this is what I do full time. My wife is a school teacher, but we do homeschool our children. We have one graduated, one going in the 10th grade, and one going in the 5th grade. And yeah, it's me. I don't do much. I don't go nowhere. I'm working the farm constantly.
I bet that takes an unbelievable amount of attention.
It does. It's a 60 to 80 hour a week job.
Oof. You see,
And we got
how's that for romanticized, eh?
yeah, it's you before we started, you talked about how romanticized homesteading is, and
Yeah.
and it is a lifestyle change if you're going to do it. There's no
Yeah.
other way around it. It's got to be your it. It can be a hobby, and it's a wonderful hobby, but I think everybody has this romantic idea of it becoming their full time, and it becomes two full time jobs very easily.
Yeah. No, I bet it's a similar thing with homeschooling, and I'm sure all the people that hear this will know because it's just for the dad schooling community. But homeschooling is really romanticized at the moment as well,
Yes.
and I guess very similar to that. I don't think many people realize how much of a lifestyle change it is. It's not just an educational choice; it's a full lifestyle overhaul, and I'm sure that's the case, as you just said, with homesteading.
Oh yeah.
That I imagine a lot of people, were thinking to themselves, yeah, I'm going to fight the government. I'm going to live on my own terms and I'm going to homeschool and homestead and we're going to grow all our own food and hunt anything else we need and don't realize actually that it's an incredibly demanding way to live.
Well, I started out as I put it out there, one of those crazy conspiracy theorists. The world's going to end. Blah blah blah.
Sure.
Um, I was expecting an economic collapse. That was my thing. I was worried. I started homesteading. Well, exploring the prospect of homesteading. My first garden was in 2009, so it was right after the 2008 uh, worldwide economic recession that went on.
Sure.
And I was like, well, I need to be a little more reliant on myself. And I don't know if I was a crazy prepper, but I did have concerns. I had major economic concerns, which still, is with me. My country, $33 trillion or $34 trillion
Yeah.
in debt, which is absolutely ridiculous.
I think you'd
And,
find it hard to argue that those concerns are unfounded.
and it's I was like, I gotta supplement. I started out with the idea I'm going to supplement some food.
Hmm.
I was a single man at that time.
Okay.
Um, my two oldest are my stepsons. I'm actually my oldest turns 21 tomorrow, and I'm adopting him.
Oh, fantastic.
So, so there's
Congratulations.
yeah, I'm excited. He asked me 3 years ago, and the state that I'm in requires you to be 21 before you can adopt a child without the other parent giving up parental rights.
Right, right. No, that makes sense.
So
I was going to ask.
so I was a single man. I was growing a garden. I was kind of learning how to preserve food, but my big hobby at the time was home brewing beer.
Okay.
And actually, some lessons from beer brewing went into preserving food, learning about the hops. It's
Sure.
preservative. Um, Indian Pale Ale was very popular in America. I don't know how it is there, but the British invented it. They added extra hops to their beer so it would make it all the way to India because hops is a natural preservative. And you ended
I
up
didn't
with
know
this
that.
really super, yeah, you ended up with this really super bitter beer, but it's the only way you could get British beer to the British colonial soldiers in India.
Hmm.
So, yeah, fun fact there. Let's see. Met my wife. Um, we moved in together and then moved away together. We moved 900 miles away. Found this property. Found a great place. And I moved for a job. I want to put that out there. I found a great job. Had to move for it, and it kind of grew. We first year was a garden, and the second year was a garden, and the third year was a bigger garden and a goat. Suddenly, the goat popped in the picture, and
Who
everyone says
whose doing was
chicken.
that?
That was my wife.
Yeah.
So after the goat came the chickens, and then more goats,
Hmm.
and then yeah, it just kind of ballooned from there. We now have goats and sheep. The sheep are my doing, and I guess a little callback to my Welsh and Scottish heritage. But I enjoy the sheep. They're so much easier than goats.
Yeah.
Much more
They
lower
seem
maintenance.
they seem less mischievous, if that's a way to describe a goat.
Very much so. Goats destroy everything. Sheep's just kind of chill out. So it's so my wife handles the animals mostly, and I say that very loosely. I kind of handle everything. But this romanticized idea of homesteading, I grow a good bulk of our food now. It's taken me 11 years to get to this point,
Sure.
and it's been a lifestyle commitment. It started as a hobby. 2020, it became full time. I lost my job during the pandemic,
Right.
and my wife was like, "Well, maybe you should try your dream because this has always been my dream." And that's how I got to the point I am now. So she's a school teacher, doctorate's degree in education, special education. She's actually a case manager for the county school system for special needs children. So she makes the bigger bucks between the two of us, but I am
Yeah.
catching up with her.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. I
So
guess 2020 was as good a time as ever. Am I right to dedicate yourself to a homestead project?
yeah, I lost my job Friday the 13th, and
Oof.
the pandemic was declared. I lost my job, and nobody was hiring. Everybody was shutting down and laying off and
Sure.
locking down, and I really had no choice. It's make money somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And that first year was rough. It was. I'm not going to deny that at all. But it's grown. I've grown a lot. I officially went commercial this year as a small scale farm,
Nice.
and that's been fun and has added a whole new layer to everything. It's also added a better income.
Yeah.
So, um, that's the for all of you that want to homestead full time because it is a wonderful lifestyle. It's exactly that. It's a lifestyle, but you have to make money, and in order to make money, you can't just hide on your property and sell soap on the internet, which is what it's how a lot of people do it.
Yeah. I
We
mean, I
started
see a
with
lot of I see a lot of posts from yourself about farmers markets you go to.
Yeah, my wife manages one, and we run it, and we started with soap in 20. We started selling it in 2016. Everybody starts with soap, right?
Okay,
Um, or
didn't
at
know
least
that, but
around in America, everyone starts with soap. There's new soap makers coming to markets every week, and fact of the matter is you're not going to get rich doing it. You're
right,
not really going to pay your bills doing it unless you're like Dr. Squatch brand soap and just
right,
have
yeah,
marketing. It's not really going to take off for you. But we started because I watched the documentary on Netflix, 2015 ish, and talking about all the chemicals that was in
mm,
soaps and household cleaners, and what it does to your health and the exposure of it to your children. And me and my wife watched it together, and we kind of looked at each other. We was like, we got to get rid of this stuff.
yeah,
And we started making our own stuff. And a year later, we're like, hey, maybe we can sell some of our stuff that we make. And we use everything we sell now, we also use on our family. So it's it's about as clean as you're going to get.
yeah. I mean, there's no bigger endorsement, right?
Right.
Um, no, I get that. My wife and I are of the same mind in terms of, the dangers of everyday items you never realized, sunscreen, shampoos and conditioners, soaps, all the toxic cleaning sprays, etc. So it's great that you've presumably just include the stuff you grow on the farm, is it?
Yeah, well,
And a
we
couple
do.
of other things.
Yeah, we do buy some things. I do a lot of research before I buy ingredients from anybody. So, but once I trust your company, yeah, you're going to get my business, and we're talking things like essential oils. Um,
Mm,
I'm not I'm not so much an aromatherapy person, but I do recognize putting lemon essential oil mixed with water and um, hydrogen peroxide, for example. That is my sterilization solution. I spray that on the counter and I walk away, and it kills everything, leaves it nice and clean. It's all natural. So, but forgot where I was going with that.
no,
Yeah,
so you
that's
people start with soap and they're not
yeah.
going to make money from it.
A lot of people start with soap or selling chicken eggs. So many people,
Yeah, yeah,
and then they get burnt out real quick because they're not making money, and you're not. I sell chicken eggs. It just covers my feed. I'm just feeding my birds for free. That's my only goal with that,
sure.
basically. But it's hard. You have to find, if you want to make it full time, it has to become a business. It has to go from beyond a hobby, beyond a
Mhm.
lifestyle, and into the business realm. And you have to look at it like a business. And I did it for a very long time. And it was trying little things here and there. We sold fresh baked bread for a couple years at the market, and we had a lot of customers. They came every week to buy our bread, and it was great, but it was so time consuming to bake
Sure.
40, 50 loaves of bread in 2 days to get ready for our market.
Yeah, that seems like a very full 2 days.
Yeah, we bought a whole second refrigerator just so we could cold proof sourdough and things like that. So it was, now it's an egg refrigerator because we quit baking bread. So we actually had our market had a vegetable vendor, been there for years. They actually started the market 6, 7 years ago. Tragically, husband and wife ended up getting divorced. They shut down the vegetable stand, and that was his income. He made all his money off of vegetables.
Mm.
Without vegetables, the farmers market dies.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
I went to him and I was like, I want to take it over. What did you do? How did you do it? And he's like, oh, I drive up to Birmingham, Alabama twice a week and buy all these vegetables from a supplier. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing that. That's a 6 hour drive for me in my old 2004 Silverado pickup truck. We're not going to do that twice a week. Excuse me, I'm fighting allergies.
No
But
problem.
yeah, he so I found a supplier closer to home that was kind of expensive, and I started buying vegetables, taking it to the market, and really just making my money back. So we had the vegetables there just to bring people back into the market,
Yeah.
get the crowds back up again. And this was February. So in February, nothing's in season around here except lettuces, kales, cabbage, things, the leafy crops, they'll grow all winter long here. So I was selling that I had grown at the market, but I was picking up tomatoes and corn and carrots and several different vegetables that were grown in South Florida and then shipped up here. So we were selling those. But I'm now to the point as of last week, 90% of everything I had on that table came off of my farm.
Wow.
And going
That's
forward, yeah, going forward, that's I hope to get to the point where everything's coming off of my farm, going on the market table. We had a page added to our website. Local people around here can now pre-order their vegetables. I will deliver it to them on a Friday, or they can pick it up at the market on Saturday. So there's no hassle, no wait. And opened that up last Friday. I already got a couple orders for this week, so I'm hoping that's gonna pick up and take off. And
amazing.
that'll make it so much simpler if I kind of know how
Yeah,
much
I bet.
crop I got to harvest and take. So it's that's what I was talking about. You have to kind of start evolving into a more business mind when you decide, all right, this is how I'm going to make my income is from this farm. Um, I've picked up several restaurants. I'm doing culinary herbs,
Right. Yeah,
especially
you mentioned.
yeah, specialty herbs are going to the restaurants. I have executive chef at one of the big casinos down here is interested. If I can pick him up, hopefully I can start picking up the casinos, and then the money will
Yeah,
really start coming in. But
that's
they
amazing.
specialty herbs are going to the restaurants. I have executive chef at one of the big casinos down here is interested. If I can pick him up, hopefully I can start picking up the casinos, and then the money will
Yeah,
really start coming in. But
that's
they
amazing. And a really, I guess, a really unique side of homesteading, or maybe a side that's not glamorized as much or not given as much coverage.
yeah, that's absolutely true. Everybody when you think of homesteading, you're growing your vegetables, you're preserving your vegetables, you're eating on them through the year, you're feeding the family, and that's all well and good, and we do that. But without a income source,
Hmm.
you're not going to pay. You got to pay property taxes. You got to pay a power bill. If you're going to have internet, you're going to have to pay an internet bill, phone bill, and things that have become so common in our everyday world now. Granted, I know a guy. He lives completely off grid, no
Hmm.
electricity. Powers his little cabin with candles and that he makes, and you can do it. It's amazing if you want to live in poverty.
Yeah, yeah, I bet. I mean,
So he's in poverty, but he's happy.
yeah, but it
But he's
takes
all
a certain type of person.
takes certain type of person, and he's single. He don't have to worry about a wife. He don't have to worry about kids.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're homeschooling, so electricity and internet is vital.
Yeah, yeah,
And so you have to make a plan for income, whether it's one spouse is staying home and homesteading full time, and the other spouse is working full time, maybe two jobs, because I don't know about where you're at, but over here, a one person working in a family is not going to cut it economically. You're not going to make it.
yeah. It's tough here. Um, I mean, we manage, but it's tough. It's tough. I know a lot of people who don't, and I think we manage purely on the fact that um, that's how we always, my wife and I met very young. We were married very young comparatively. We were married at 19. Um, and so it just kind of, it was always the lifestyle we wanted. So
Right.
we just kind of, our lives were always built around doing that. And they were always built together. It's not like had separate lives and then met at 25, 26 and then tried to establish something. I think
Yes.
that's
And
really the only way we've managed to do it.
And the way you've done it is probably the easiest way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, to you're building your life into that
Yeah,
versus,
exactly. And I
you
mean,
know,
we,
two people with careers come together, have a kid, suddenly one person's staying home to raise the kid, and now your income's cut in half, and lifestyle changes have to be made, and it gets really hard.
yeah, it's huge. I mean, you're cutting an entire salary out of your life, whereas we never had to do that because um, my wife was pregnant a couple of years after we got married, and we just she just stayed with the kids then, and we just kind of built the life around it.
We planned it, so we planned me being home all the
Mm.
time. Eventually, it happened a little sooner than we planned on it because of the pandemic, but it was in our plans. So when we met, my wife was a nurse. Um, After we got married, we were talking, and she's like, "I always wanted to be a teacher," and I said, "Well, go be a teacher." So she went back to college, got her bachelor's, got her master's, got her doctorate's degree, and I supported her through all that. She still worked part
Mm.
time, but I worked full time, long hours. But the goal from the beginning was, I was like, once you've reached your dream, I want a shot at my dream,
Sure.
and that was the deal, because that's why she pursued her doctorate's degree. Was, that's a difference. Her doctorate's degree is a $40,000 a year difference between a bachelor's
Oh,
in
yeah,
the
that's
education
big.
field.
That's huge.
So we did that. She got her master's degree in 2020.
Mm.
So it was earlier than we had planned, because we had planned for her to have her doctorate's degree finished when I came home. So that's why I said we were a little off in our timeline. But it was kind of thrust upon us.
Yeah.
And she was like, now's the chance. You don't have a job. That we've been forced to cut the income to what it is. So now's the chance. So that's how that happened. And we've never looked back. It's been great. We've built year after year. She has her career. I managed to get the farm profitable. The first 6 years, the farm was not profitable at all. We were
Yeah.
dumping money into everything.
I mean, that's a huge achievement in and of itself.
And I think
And
that's
I'm,
average on any small business. I think it takes about 5 years to become profitable. It's a lot of hard work and sacrifice up to that point.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it's a crazy achievement, and congratulations, man. I mean,
I appreciate that.
it looks grueling, and but at the same time rewarding, and
It's
it's go ahead.
I've taught several online courses on beginner homesteading, and one thing I tell everybody is, there's this idea that you're going to get out of the corporate world, you're going to get
Mm,
on the land, everything's going to feel better, and it does. Don't get me wrong, it does. I would much rather be here than stuck in my office where I
yeah,
was 4 years ago. Um, but you're just trading one set of stress for another set of stress. Like, that part of it doesn't go away.
sure.
So, rather, in the corporate world, you have deadlines and demands and bosses to answer to, and it gets overwhelming for anybody. Here, I have to worry about what the weather's doing. I
Yeah,
have to worry about getting up at 1:30 in the morning because I have a sheep having a lamb and she's struggling. So I'm sitting out here till 3 in the morning, and then I got to get back up at 5 to work the farm, my normal farm chores. It's you're just trading one set of stresses for another. If we're in a drought period, I got to worry about watering the crops. Today
yeah,
it's been storming all day. I've been watching the radar, praying that um no hail develops, because all it takes is one hailstorm to just completely wipe out my crop that I got going on. And this year we had a couple of late cold snaps, so all my vegetables were stunted. So I'm actually late getting product to market. And so it's still stress. You still got stresses. It's still a job. You still got to worry about everything you got to worry about. The difference is I do it outside in the fresh air under the hot sun and
yeah,
the blue
yeah.
skies. I don't have a boss to answer to. I have Mother Earth to answer to. But
So, yeah, Mother Nature.
yeah, I have hit my knees in my garden more than once in the last few years and prayed to God to just help me out with this, get this growing. But it's yeah, it's great.
Right.
You just have to figure out what you're wanting to deal with.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. And I guess there's much more fulfillment working towards your own dream. I mean, if you're going to have stress, either way,
Yeah,
at least
absolutely.
at least the stress should be channeled towards living your own dream than living someone else's.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get rich, but I'm not stressing out trying to make somebody else rich either. So
Yeah.
it's and we're men. We like to see the end product of our work, right?
Yeah.
So I know all the time I spent in the greenhouse in late February, early March, filling planters with dirt and planting seeds and coming in covered in dirt and topsoil and now I get to go out there and pick the crops off of the plants that I've worked so hard to seed and grow and transplant and weed and fertilize. And so you get a satisfaction. My job now, daily, I'm getting an end result
Yeah.
satisfaction from my work. And it feels good. You know,
Yeah. That's got it.
um,
Purposeful. It's purposeful.
I, I'm a very religious person, and I tell everybody that farming is the only job that God told us to do. So it's in the Garden of Eden, Adam's job was to tend the garden. When we got kicked
Sure.
out of the garden, God's like, "You're going to go till the land all the days of your life." And so it's like I do the work that God intended for us.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, kind of half serious, half of a joke, but it's
No,
uh it's a
I
it's a fun
totally,
thought.
yeah, yeah. It's definitely something to mull over. And, I can, as you said, there's a lot of fulfillment in it. I can see that perhaps that's why people are so keen to start. Um, is not just the not just the middle finger to the government, but that sense of purpose, that sense of um, fulfillment, that sense of watching the fruits of your labor, if you pardon the pun, um, come to life and being rewarded for it. As you said, I think
Well, I
men are
think we have.
typically hardwired to that sort of climb the mountain, reap the rewards type mentality, and I don't really get that as part of an office deal.
Well, I think we're as God's creation, hardwired to want to be in God's creation. So
Yeah,
even even urban city folks, they want their parks, they want their green spaces, they want to get
yep,
out there and enjoy it, or they go hiking and camping. Um, on a farm, I'm in God's creation every day. I think we all as humans have a natural draw back to the wilderness in some shape or
yeah,
form,
absolutely. I mean,
and
you can back
I'm just elbows deep in
religious, sorry, religious or secular background at all. I mean, you can't. No, there's nobody on earth who can deny therapeutic pull of nature, the longing to be, the longing to be part of the of the wilderness of the natural world.
Yeah, I had that talk with a my brother-in-law who's atheist. Um, I was like, well, let's look at it from an atheistic point of view. Um, where did our ancestors come from? If you go back, I'm big in the genealogy and family history. And if you go back in American history, 150 years ago, 80% of the population were farmers,
Hmm.
and that's how it's been for millennia before that. And I think it's something that's hardwired. I believe in ancestral memory. I think we're drawn to things,
Yeah, that makes sense.
and it's a part of us. It's unnatural to be away from it.
Yeah,
You know, uh, urban urban living people tend to have higher rates of depression and suicide and things
yeah,
like that. And I'm like, well, they need a tree.
yeah. I mean,
You know,
well,
it's
you could argue that statistically they might earn more as well. So it's not that the money is makes people happy. It's the or keeps people
sure.
fulfilled.
Sure, we need interaction. We need interaction with each other, and we need interaction with nature.
Yep.
Even if you're an atheist, you agree that we're an animal, and animals are a part of nature. So we still have that part of us that needs
Yeah,
fulfilling.
absolutely. Um, I guess based on that comment about, people living in urban areas and wanting to reconnect, what are your recommendations for people who are living in urban areas or even the suburban areas where, space is still, I mean, in the UK, space is pretty limited regardless of where you live. Um, what can we do? What do you recommend growing? What's easy? What can the novices do that can just maybe help them gain that glimpse of purposeful living and connection to our roots?
Well, I tell everyone, if you have a windowsill that gets a decent amount of sun, you can grow something. If you have a container that will hold soil, you can grow something. The class that I taught, I challenged everybody, even if you lived in an apartment, you go buy a 1 gallon pot from a nursery, or you can go online and they sell potato bags. So I always challenge everybody, plant a potato, just get something growing. You'll come to love it. You will look at that plant every day. You will make sure it's healthy. You will water it. You'll feed it, and then it's weird to get attached to it almost like a pet.
I bet. Especially for your first one.
Yeah, and if you have a balcony, you can put flower pots out and grow things. 5 gallon buckets are amazing. Um, I don't know what that is in the metric system, but but
No idea.
you can grab an old paint bucket and put some dirt in it and grow a tomato plant out on your balcony. You don't have to produce all your food, but there's a sense of excitement when um that that pasta sauce you just made came from the Roma tomatoes you grew in the bucket on your balcony.
Yeah.
It's I did this. I planted those seeds. I grew that plant. I harvested it. Now I'm eating this delicious deal. And it grow things grow inside. You can grow coffee plants as a house plant. It's I just discovered that last week and got excited because now I wanted to make a coffee room, which is weird because coffee grows in my area decently well anyway. But yeah, pick something. Pick a. I was telling you about a bean the other
Yep,
day.
you
Was it
were.
you? I was talking about?
Yep, on
Yeah,
the server.
plant a bean. They harvest super quick. Especially if you got kids. The kids love it because less than a week after, usually 3 to 4 days after you've planted it, it's popped up out of the soil,
Okay.
and the kids absolutely love it. And it's an easy plant to grow, and you know you can eat something off of it in a pretty short period of time. It's a very rewarding plant. It's good plant for education. Schools use
Yeah.
beans all the time for learning about the botany of a plant, and
Mm. Sure.
you don't even need really don't even need soil. You can put a bean in a wet paper towel, and it will grow.
That's
Then
pretty cool.
you can see the roots coming out. You can see the stem coming out. You can see the first leaves. I call them the solar panels because
Mm.
their only job is to absorb sunlight to get the rest of the plant growing. Hmm. And I do things like that. I teach my kids the scientific words, but then I'll be like, it's the solar panels of the plant.
Yeah.
It helps them understand better what that part of the plant's job is. But yeah, it's anybody that wants their hands in it, there's nothing you can do but go put your hands in dirt. Just do it. A bean, a potato,
Mm.
anything it grows well in your climate. Lettuce, kale grows really really well. I'm actually going to attempt to grow a Welsh kale this year, this fall.
Okay. Fantastic.
It's a, it's called walking stick kale,
Never
and
heard of it,
well,
but
and well, it grows small leaves but a really tall thick stalk. And it may be called something different. I'll have to find it and send it to you later. But
yeah.
they harvest this stalk and they hang it, and it dries for like 2 3 years, and then they sand it down and shape it and lacquer it, and You know, you get this nice, pretty walking stick from it.
That's pretty cool. I've definitely never heard of that, and I don't think I've ever seen any walking sticks made of kale. Um,
Yeah, it's pretty neat. I think it's Wells. I read all about it, but anyway, um, I'll find it and send it to you later, and you can see what I'm talking about. And I looked at ordering one, and you know, it's like 450 British pounds,
oof.
and yeah, they're expensive, and you know that was we got to ship it across the Atlantic Ocean and everything to get to me,
Yeah,
but
sure.
yeah, it's great, you know, and my kids know there's so many benefits to it. You know,
Yeah.
my my mother-in-law just died last year. Um, my daughter, who was 9, took it like a pro. You know, she was really good at it. I think it was my wife's cousin died when my daughter was 7. She handled it really well. And people ask me how, and I'm like, well, she's seen baby goats die and sheep die and found dead chickens in the run. And, you know,
Yeah.
it's an introduction to that darker side of life that I think a lot of kids don't get.
Yeah, sure.
She's she knows more about mating than I want her to know at 10 years old. But you know,
Yeah, I bet.
but you know, when you're walking by and the the male goat, the buck has mounted to the doe, you know, it's kind of hard to you can't just shield your eyes and turn away. So it's like, Dad, what are they doing? They're making babies. It's
No, I
so
get
it's
that.
there's so many life lessons just on the farm. Um,
Yeah.
you know, she knows when it's time to be a tough girl if she skins her knee, or if it's time to come get mommy or daddy because you know this might be serious, or if she's injured. And
Yeah. I mean,
she's
that's
very she's very aware. You know, we have snakes, we have poisonous snakes,
sure.
so you know she's more conscious of her surroundings, I think, than a lot of 10-year olds are.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So there's a lot of life lessons to be learned, and you know, it's not that we're maturing her quicker, but she's still very much a kid. You know, she's my hippie child. I tell her all the time, my wife, she's our flower child. This is the kid that's going to like hike the mountains of Nepal when she gets older and travel the world. She's just a free spirit out there. And the great
Yeah.
thing about homeschooling is, you know, you get to encourage that personality. So,
Yes. Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
my oldest kid was a bookworm. He preferred to sit in his bedroom and read. And so, you know, he wanted books. We got him books. And but at the same time, he would come outside and go fishing with us in the pond. And it's you get to encourage him. My middle child, he's an explorer. He likes to go hiking through the woods. At the end of the day, school's done, chores is done. Hey, Dad, I'm gonna go in the woods on the backside of the property. I'm like, all right, have fun. And he'll come back and tell me about all the things he saw or discovered, or ask me questions about something he found. And so you get to encourage all of that.
Yeah.
And
I,
it's so much better with yeah, my wife is an educator. She hates that kids sit in the classroom for 8 hours a day.
yeah, I bet.
And you know, we can get through a lesson in 3 4 hours during the day if you're following a curriculum. Some curriculums will have easier days. And, you know,
Yeah.
we're done with school in 2.5 hours,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then the kids get to play, or they get to go explore, or I take them fishing, or I take them hiking, or you know, it's
Yeah. And
farming's a lot of work, but again, the good side of homesteading full time is if I want to take 3 hours in the middle of the morning to take my kid hiking, there's nobody to tell me that I can't, and it's not
yeah.
going to affect my farm, you know. So so many benefits to this lifestyle if you can commit to it and work and get to the point that I am. Yeah,
I mean,
I don't want to.
I didn't even think of that side of things, but there's the obvious learning benefits to living on the farm and living a homesteading lifestyle. There's obvious academic benefits in terms of, agricultural science, botany, zoology, those types of subjects. They're living them firsthand. But I didn't think of the sort of the life lessons they learn living in the real actually living in the real world, as opposed to living in the four walls of a classroom most of the day, most of the week. You know, those things about the animals mating, the animals dying, um, you know, just living and experiencing life, the real world, as opposed to in the four walls of a classroom and a very controlled playground every time they decide it's recess.
Right. Yeah, it's it's, people talking about homeschool kid. Socialization always gets brought up.
Mm.
Um, my 10-year-old can carry on a conversation with a child or an adult with no
Yeah.
problem, and better than a 20-year-old can do that went
Oh
to
yeah.
public school. You know, we get talked about, oh, your daughter's to swear, your son's so amazing. My son has got the biggest heart. If he sees you carrying something or doing something, he's going to walk over, hey, can I help? And he will just carry on a long conversation with anybody, teenager, adult, it doesn't matter. And it's like I think homeschooled kids are. I would argue they're better socialized, honestly.
Yep. I'd fully support that argument. It's a hill I would die on with you.
Yeah, I mean
Um,
it's. I don't know any 10-year-old that, and my wife teaches 10-year-olds. I don't know any 10-year-old that can carry themselves with an adult the way my wife does, or my daughter does.
yeah. Yeah. Honestly, we were um, so we started attending a new church a couple of weeks ago, and my kids um, went to the Sunday school for the first time, and they were completely blown away by how well they could hold the conversation, how openly they were talking to the adults, the ladies who ran the Sunday school. And they came up to us and said, look, normally it's really difficult to get stuff out of the kids. That, it's really difficult to have a conversation with them, because it's just, they try to end it as quickly as possible. But your kids just, they were just going and going and going and had no problem at all. No uncomfortableness talking to us as adults or as, teachers, quote unquote, in the Sunday school.
Yeah, yeah. It's I think farm or not, homeschooling itself provides its own life lessons.
Yeah.
This being one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
in the classroom is a very controlled setting, and the relationships they have with adults are very authoritative.
yes,
And it's, I'm the boss and you are the pupils. You don't question what I say, whatever I say goes, etc., etc. Whereas in the homeschooling lifestyle, they are just exposed to adults every day, lots of different adults. They learn from them, they share with them. Um, they just have that experience.
my wife did a paper for her postgraduate degree. Um, and I'm only talking about American schools. I don't know much about anybody
Mm.
else's school systems, but um, an American tycoon in the late 1800s, John D. Rockefeller, most people know the name Rockefeller,
Yep.
played a big role in developing our current model of schools.
Hmm.
And in her research into this, she discovered a quote by Rockefeller.
Yeah.
He admitted that he designed schools to train workers.
Yep. Something like, he didn't want a nation of thinkers, wasn't it?
Yes,
I want a nation of workers.
yes, and that's what the school system's modeled around, even today. You know, it's people. I hear people talk about how, so a big thing, not to get sensitive in politics or anything, but a big thing in America right now is LGBT agenda being pushed on kids in school, and
Hmm.
this and that. And I've heard so many parents complain. I have friends that complain, well, my kid didn't act like this last year, and now they're my kid's questioning if they're gay, and all kinds of things. And so honestly, if you talk to my kids about it, um, they think logically enough that they can make their own decisions without being pressured into something.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's something that was taught in homeschooling, because they're not under that authoritative system where you're just going to do what you're told. And my kids have the ability to make their own decisions on things. and I support them in that ability. Even me and my
when it's
20,
difficult.
almost 21-year-old, we don't agree on everything, but I encourage him to have his opinion and make his decision, and I respect it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the only way you can be. If my child come to me and said, "Dad, I'm gay," I would be fine with that. But if they were not 2 months ago, and now that they've gone through your system and suddenly they're questioning things, I would be more curious as to whether or not an ideology is being pushed on them versus them being able to make their own decisions on things.
Yeah. No, I can see that. And I think the worrying thing there is maybe if you look past the the LGBTQ, the letters, it's really about removing authority from the parents, like removing
Yes.
responsibility from the parents. It's about cutting out the parents because the whole talk around it, and certainly the dangerous aspect of it is not informing parents or keeping things secret or um,
Yeah, and that
parents
and
not
that's
not being able to challenge you on anything you say.
yeah, and that's the part is how secretive a lot of it is.
Mm.
And that's just should make people think suspicious for anybody. But the truth of the matter is if you send your kids to public school and they're spending 6, 8 hours a day with a teacher, it gets to the point where that teacher is more of a parental figure than the parent.
Look, they
Um,
certainly a really influential role in their life.
it happened to me when I was in high school. I have now, granted, the teacher, Miss Hall, I still to this day love her and think the world of her. She was a person of good moral setting,
Mm.
but yeah, I was closer to her than my own parents at one point in time in high school. I would go to her first if I had a problem for advice, than to go to my own mom. And you get that in that setting where the kids start being more comfortable with this, who to you is a stranger. It's just the teacher,
Yeah,
but they're not a stranger to the child.
no,
So, and
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 well,
that's when they develop more influence over their child than you have.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I've said it before. I know fantastic parents who use the public school system. They're great guys. But that child is still spending 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week in that system, and they can come home, and you can be against the system or against what they try and teach from a moral perspective and a spiritual perspective, but you still have to then undo 6 to 8 hours of programming that they're exposed to every day.
Right.
I
So
just I don't think that's entirely feasible.
and let's be honest, most parents are not going to get 6 to 8 hours in the evening to deprogram.
No.
So you have to deprogram and then reprogram
Hmm.
um, your morals, but you have half the time to do it in. So
Yeah.
it's a losing battle. And maybe reprogram was a bad use of words there, but to teach your own morals,
Yeah, I get you. I get
you
you.
you you lose the ability to go, well, I think this is bad and this is why I think it's bad. Like you don't have the time to give your argument on the subject, basically. Because I encourage kids being able to make their own decisions, which will
Hmm.
require in any debate, both sides need equal time to present their sides of the debate. So it is, and parents get upset and they wonder why their kids not listen to them. And,
Oh yeah.
when my oldest, he did do public school for a couple of years,
Hmm.
and he kept coming home talking about Mr. D. Mr. D this, Mr. D this, and I'd say something. He'd go, "Well, Mr. D said," and I looked at my wife and I'm like, "This is becoming an issue."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he wasn't pulled out of school for that reason. He started getting bullied real bad, and the public school
Hmm.
wouldn't do anything about it. We
Not
went
an
through
un,
and everything, and
not an uncommon story, I'm afraid.
yeah, so that's why I ended up being pulled out of public school ultimately.
Yeah, well, like I said, it happens all too frequently, and I can't imagine. And going back to what we were talking to earlier, but bringing it to the school setting and comparing to the homestead setting, we think about everyone living in the big cities and they're spending all those days in the offices. I mean, that takes its toll on anyone. And reconnecting with nature is vital. So I imagine, living on the farm and living on the homestead, it's got to do, you know, there's got to be a wealth of benefits from a mental and emotional development perspective. Just not being in that sort of public school setting where you're in those four walls and in that really sort of artificial playground environment to just being in nature basically and learning in nature and learning outside and having that, not knowing the the confines of the setting.
Sorry, I had one of my kids talking to me. Um,
That's fine.
yeah, well, I tell people, think about your job. If you've worked at a place for 2, 3, 4 years, you start getting really close with your coworkers.
Hmm.
Um, Affairs happen that way. You get further from your spouse than you are from your coworkers because who are you spending most of your time with?
Yeah.
Right. And it's it's the same way. It's the same way in schools. One with the teachers, but two, when you get used to that sterile environment. Um, I know a lot of teenagers that recoil from the thought of going out in the woods, camping or hiking, or they
Oh,
want to be on their cell phone or they want to be talking to their friends on
yeah.
Instagram, and it's you're sterilizing a lot,
Hmm.
and it's completely altering these are developmental years of your child. They're coming out of these years with the person they're going to be the rest of their life, most of the time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
You
And
you can't when they're stuck in a classroom 6, 8 hours a day in a very controlled environment. A lot of them get out into the real world, and suddenly they're not in that controlled environment,
mhm.
and it's a huge slap in the face, and a lot of them suffer, and a lot of them struggle, and it's the fault of how we raised them. My children, they're aware when we are struggling with a bill.
Yeah.
We don't hide it from the kids. We don't sanitize that from them. Hey dad, can we order some pizza this Friday? Well, we're trying to make the light bill this week, so we're not going to be able to do that. It's you can't sanitize any of it. You have to let them experience it. When my oldest son, turned 17, he got a job. First thing I did was give him the internet bill. But this is yours every month, no kid. $70 a month. You're making $300 a week. $70 a month ain't gonna kill you. You still got your play money, but you have a bill now. You have to pay this every month, and it's some people. I got bashed by that for that by some people, and I got praised by that by some people. And my thought was I want him to understand when he goes out into the real world, he's got
Yeah.
responsibilities. When he gets an apartment, or he's not ever getting an apartment. But if one of my kids get an apartment, I want them to know, well, you got your rent you got to pay, you got your power bill you got to pay, you get, water, and you have to get used to this. My middle child turned 16 in September, and he wants a job. And I'm like, all right, cool. You're going to get the internet bill as soon as you get a job. And, my oldest boy still lives at home. He's almost 21, and he now pays the power bill, and he helps with a little bit of groceries. Kid makes $20 an hour, so he's not hurting to pay a bill and buy some groceries. And
Yeah.
again, I get bashed for that. And I'm like, no, if he's gonna live at home, he's got to still have these responsibilities, just like he would if he was out on his own. But
Yeah,
he's got
sure.
the
And it's
benefit. He's got the benefit that. So my rule is, if you once you graduate, you turn 18, you either have to go to college or you have to get a job
mhm.
or the military. Um, Me and her mom both military, but you can live at home as long as you want to, as long as you're attending college, community college, or whatever, or you have a job.
Yeah.
So,
Makes sense to me.
and you have to be building something. You can't be working at McDonald's. You can start at McDonald's, that's fine. But my oldest boy decided he wanted to be a plumber. He's now a plumber's apprentice, working towards becoming a master plumber. And it's that's a career field. Plumbers are never going away. He
Yep.
wants to own his own company by the time he's 30, and he's bright and he's good at it, and um, he'll be just fine. My middle child has expressed interest in becoming a pipe fitter and welding, and like that's a great. I was like, you'll make more money than your brother does if you follow that. We where I live at, we have 40 minutes down the road, we have a big shipyard, Ingle Shipyard. They make Navy ships there.
That's pretty
Pipe,
cool.
pipe fitters start at $36 an hour there. Like green behind the ear, or don't know much, starts at 36 an hour there. Like so, it's that's what you want to do. We need more blue collar. I'm not going to push them to go to college if they decide they want
No,
a blue collar trade job.
there are,
But
there's many viable
yeah,
paths after
yep.
education.
I don't I don't want them working a blue collar in a factory or something that's never going to go anywhere. I want them
Mm.
to get a trade. They can learn a trade, and then you can build yourself a trade. You become an apprentice, then you become a journeyman, and then you become a master. And you can build and grow from there. From that point, my oldest son's Eric, by the way. So Eric, he wants to get his master plumber's license, and then he wants to go back to trade school and learn electrical, and eventually get his general contractor's license. It's like that's the path he wants to grow on. And so yeah, if they want to do a trade, all for a trade. I'm all for it. I wasted my 20s. I'm trying to make sure my kids don't waste theirs.
Mm. No, that's honorable, and I bet that living on the homestead, living on the farm, has done a lot to teach them some of the skills they need for that, for free thinking, understanding that there's multiple paths, because obviously in the education system you're just pushed into further education. um it's just the natural path most people take if they're
Right.
ingratiated in the system, because it's comfortable. It's what they know more education, they don't know the real world. So
Right.
that's big and scary. But if I just go to college, it's just a continuation of what it's just school again, and I know how to
Yeah.
do school.
Yep.
So I bet, and seeing you run your own business and build your own business from build the farm from money sink to profitable, and learn all those tricks of the trade, and all those things about running a business and living life, and not just that, but the hard work. If they're at home being homeschooled, there's no shying away from the hard work that you put in. It's easy to be detached when you go to an office, and I'm not saying you can't work hard there, but if you're going to an office and your kids are going to school and then you come back at the end of the day and then you chat, nobody sees what anyone's doing.
Right.
It's all very abstract and everyone's separate. Whereas you guys are a unit. They see you working as hard as you are on the homestead. They see the ups, the downs. Um, they hear about the 1:30 a.m. lambings, and
Oh,
yeah,
the couple times they've been out there with me.
yeah. See,
They'll
I mean,
they'll wake up here and they go out the door. I'm like, Dad, you need some help. I'm like, yeah, come on.
it's just that life, exposing them to life, and you know what? They can do that and help you because they don't have to be up and in school by 8 a.m. the next day. If there's a like you said, if there's a lamb and a sheep in distress, then they can go help you in the middle of the night, because guess what? There's no school to get up for in the morning. You can start
Yeah.
whenever you need to.
And the way I do it around here, I've taught all my kids. Well, my daughter's still learning; she's still young, but I've taught my boys the basics on. They know the basics of carpentry. They know the basics of plant care. Um, and what I'll do is I'll be like, all right, Xavier's my middle child. Like, Xavier, this is the problem. So yesterday, I was like, we got the AOD squash out there that needs a trellis. It's a heavy squash, so the cane poles and the string's not going to work to hold this plant up. He's like, all right. I was like, I want you to go figure it out. He went and found some scrap wood, and he pulled the chop saw out and the nail gun out, and he built a wooden trellis going up beside where the AOD squashes is. And is the trellis perfect and pretty? No, it's not. Is it going to work? It's absolutely going to work. It will do the job. He made it sturdy.
See,
So
that's the beauty of it. That is the beauty of it. It's just that, and that's got to be, you know, a fantastic childhood you're providing those children, and have provided some of those children, I should say, given how old some of them are now.
yeah,
But
and that's what I want to do is I want my children to be able to be presented with a problem and to create a solution for it.
yeah,
I'm trying to teach problem solving, and I'm trying to teach critical thinking, and and honestly creativity. It's a very creative.
yeah, I bet.
Looking at it right now as we're talking, it's a very creative trellis, but it's you. I guess you kind of get that in schools, but you're not going to get the same experience.
Oh no, no, there's no substitute for the real world, and the openness and the freedom you have in those opportunities, and the frequency in which you have those opportunities. It's much more of a viable learning strategy, I would say, than
I will
if it
send
was in
you.
the controlled setting of the public school.
I used to be a blog writer for a website called Barbarian Rhetoric, and I got hundreds of blog articles on there. I'm going to find one and send it to you um, about my daughter
Okay.
because I was blasted. I was called a child abuser and all kinds of things on the internet because when she was 8, her and her mom make jewelry together. They hand make jewelry,
Mm-hmm.
earrings, necklaces. We have the market booth. So she goes, "Dad, I want a market booth." I was like, "All right, let's get you a market booth." So we went and bought her a tent, and we went and I had a sign made for her, Joyce's Creations, and set a table out there. And we bought her startup supplies, and she sat there and she made jewelry. And she set out the market the next weekend and behind her table, and she sold jewelry. And I think most people bought it because there was this cute little girl
Yeah.
selling these things. And she made like $50 her first weekend, and she outdid me and her mom that weekend. And she was so excited, and she was like, I want to buy this, I want to buy that. I'm like, all right, but you got to resupply your booth. So
Yeah.
we went back to the store. Out of her $50, she bought the stuff to make more jewelry. Then she went and bought a toy. Oh man, I was blasted. I'm a child abuser. I robbed her of her childhood and all kinds of things. And
What was
I
their
was
what was their reasoning? Because
because I was
and
robbing her of
everything
her.
you've just said there was
Well, they said I was forcing her to be responsible and mature and taking away from her childhood, where I'm forcing her to work a booth and learn business instead of being out there playing. And I'm like, well, actually, half the time at the market, I sat behind her booth because she was playing with another kid at the market. But it
no,
was, and I
that's
had the opposite. I had the opposite end too. I had people praising me. Oh, this is amazing.
yeah.
You're teaching them financial responsibility,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and
Like
she doesn't run a booth anymore. She decided she didn't want to do it no more. And cool. You don't have to do it
that's
no more.
fair. No, my kids do the exact same thing. Not a market booth. But as part of their co-op, they sell like prepackaged biscuits, so like cookies for you guys and probably most of the guys on the server. And yes,
Yeah,
they sell like prepackaged cookies and prepackaged um, treats and stuff like that. And they make cups of tea and cups of coffee, and they charge the adults at the co-op money for it. Only a small amount, but um, at the end of the week, once they gather everything up, and they're saving up for some trip to for a day out at the end of the year. But we always make them reset. They buy their own stock. They take
right.
stock of what sold well, what didn't sell well, what they could be replenishing, and they use the money they make to replenish their stock. And that seems like such a valuable lesson, that so far from child abuse.
Yeah, I'll send you the article. I don't remember all the details, but I quoted tweets and everything in my blog article. But
That's
it's
crazy.
It was
But
like I said, I
I
had both ends. I was a child abuser and I was a great parent. You know, it's depending on who you talk to. But
but I think a testament to perhaps how far removed some of us have become from the real world and real life and valuable life skills.
right. And you know, the person that called me a child abuser because I was robbing her childhood because she couldn't play. My child probably plays more than their child does.
Yeah.
So
Arguably.
their child's sitting in a public school for 6 to 8 hours a day.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
my daughter, when we're you know, if we homeschool 4 hours, it's very rarely 4 straight hours.
yeah, yeah.
We'll start getting antsy, and I see her getting antsy. I'm like, let's go outside for 30 minutes. You know,
Yeah, let's take a break.
in the middle of a math problem, I'm like, all right, put the pencil down. Let's go outside for a little while. You know, she'll run around, play with the cats, chase a dog, and get that energy out, and then we can go back uh to schoolwork. And sometimes we school for an hour straight. Sometimes we school for 2 hours. Sometimes it's she's breaking every 30 minutes. It depends on how much energy she has that day.
Yep, yep, and that's the beauty of it. We're the same here, and sometimes my kids are great. They're like, "Yeah, let's get all our work done. Let's be super productive today for some reason." And then other days, those feet are dragging, and they can
Oh,
drag pretty slow and pretty far.
she'll have days where we've done as many as 3 lessons in a day before because she's like, Dad, can I do the next day? And we'll
Hmm.
do that. Like, Dad, can I do it? I'm like, you want to sit there? Then sure. You know, it's last year she finished school in March instead of May. So she just sat down and did it. And I'm like, cool, extra long summer.
Yep,
And, my wife being a teacher, of course, you know, once a week, my wife would give her like a math sheet to do problems on just to keep the skill up. But
yeah, yeah,
you know, she wasn't sitting for long lessons anymore. She'd blow through those math sheets in 5 minutes and go back to playing. You know, there's just so much freedom to teach your children how they need to be taught.
yep.
So I helped my wife study so much in her education degree, and I learned so much about um, you know, we're all individual people. We're all unique to each other, and we all learn in different ways. And I learned a lot about catering teaching to the way a child learns. In homeschooling, that's so much easier because you can provide more one-on-one attention to the children. So, you know, if she gets antsy, I get it. You know, if she was in public school, my wife's already said if her daughter was in public school, they'd be trying to push Ritalin on her
Mhm. Yeah,
just to calm her down. And I'm anti-medicating a kid unless they absolutely have to be.
yep. I think that should
And
be the stance of every parent.
it's so you know my oldest boy or my middle child Xavier, he learns very well through lectures. So a lot of his homeschooling, he's actually watching videos of a teacher teaching, and he learns very well that way. My daughter does not learn that well at all.
Mm.
My daughter needs a pencil in her hand and a piece of paper under her, and she needs to write it down and work it out. And you got to, you know, help her step by step, and that's the way she learns. You know, in a public school, you can't. If you got when I was in school, there'd be 30 kids in the class. I think the school my wife works at, there's about 15 in each class. But at 15, you can't tailor how you're
No,
teaching to 15 different kids.
no, you can't.
You know, some kids do really well, some kids do poorly. The kids that's doing poorly, I don't think there's a bad kid. I think there's a kid that's not getting what he needs or she
Sure.
needs. And, you know, the only thing they can do is act out.
Well, no, it makes sense from there. It's got to be so frustrating, isn't it?
Yeah. And, you know, and I get it. Not everybody can homeschool. I wish everybody could. For some people, it's just simply not feasible. But that's a failure of society, not a failure of the parent.
Yeah, and well, I agree with that, but I would add, I know for some people it's not possible, but I think the nuance to that point that society misses is that it's probably a lot more feasible for more people than they care to admit.
Oh yeah, and I've talked about it before. I've talked about was a couple years ago. I put a post on Twitter because I'd found myself in a conversation about homeschooling. And we're like, well, we can't afford to have both of us not working. And I messaged the guy and I was like, why? And he started listing off all these expenses that he had. And they were paying like $500 a month in subscriptions of different streaming services and this and that, and going out to eat. And I'm like, man, if you really want to homeschool, you really want your wife to stay home, she wants to stay home, start cutting this stuff out. You don't need Netflix. You don't need to go out to eat 3 times a week at a restaurant. If she's at home cooking, they're your restaurant's going to go out the window right there because they ate out so much because they didn't have time to cook.
Yeah.
Like, well, if there's a parent at home, well, now there's more time to. My wife's the career person. I'm the stay-at-home person. Guess who does most of the cooking? I'm making chicken curry tonight, and if whoever stays home, man or woman, I am all for stay-at-home dads, being one myself. There's no shame in it. At least in America, there's a lot of stigma
Yeah,
against the
it's true.
stay-at-home dad and the woman being the breadwinner. But there shouldn't be a stigma, and anybody can do it. But you have to, if you're a guy, you're gonna have to accept that you're going into a domestic role. You're going to be cleaning the house, you're going to be doing the laundry, you're going to be cooking the meals. My wife comes home from work and she has a hot meal on the table, and I rub her feet. And that's the exact opposite of what so many men preach a man and woman's
Yeah, yeah.
relationship should be like. But my wife works hard. She's on her feet all day long, and some months she's the one paying all the bills. I can't deny that. Some months I'm able to pay the bills and she doesn't pay anything. That money goes in the savings account, or she goes to the hairdresser and gets her hair done, or whatever she wants to do.
That's
So
beautiful, man.
it's you have to strike a balance, but I've seen it, and I did coaching for a little while, and it was homestead coaching, and it was helping people um, change their mentality to have one partner being domestic.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I've met couples where uh, the man stayed home and he's like, I'm not going to do that domestic crap. I'm like, dude, you got to. And I've met couples where the woman stayed home and she was like, I'm not doing that. He's not the boss. I shouldn't have to do all this and that. I'm like, no, you're going to have to. You have to accept that domestic role. And if if as a man you cannot accept a role that I guess traditionally would be a woman's role,
Mm.
and you're going to fail at it. You know what I mean?
No, I mean, homesteading, homeschooling, these two things take a big amount of sacrifice. And
Yes.
somewhere down the line, if you want to be serious about doing those things, you've got to find out where you can make those sacrifices. And it may not be where you always thought they would be. And you're just going to have to deal with that if you want to legitimately adopt those lifestyles.
100%.
And I think it's it's been a fantastic conversation, and it's getting late here, and we could talk for hours. But
Yeah,
I'm gonna have
you're way
to.
ahead of me on time.
I am, yes, I'm way ahead of most people I speak to.
It's 4 o'clock here, so
Yeah, yeah, it's 10 p.m. here,
yeah.
so it's
All
it's
right, Alec.
cruising on
Well,
pretty late.
Alec, it was great talking to you, and
Yeah, thank you so
I
much for
hope
coming on. Thank you so
I hope
much for
I'm
being
helpful to
part of Dad
somebody.
Schooling.
Yeah, no, it's great. I love the server.
Yeah,
I
I
like.
mean,
I don't always interact, but I read most everything. So
that's amazing. Yeah, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on, sharing all your thoughts, your experiences. I'm sure you will help so many dads in on the server, because you know it almost feels like a natural curiosity when you start homeschooling, that homesteading thing, even if it's just a minor hobby. It's just a natural curiosity. So I'm confident you're gonna have helped loads of people today.
I want to encourage everyone to try something, anything that you would consider a homesteading thing, whether it's canning some food or hand making some candles, because there's lessons for your kids and all that, and lessons for yourself and all that
Yeah.
stuff. So you don't have to homestead to pick up a hobby that's beneficial. And I would like to say, any guy listening to this, if you got any questions for me, Alec will tell you I'm pretty quick to respond, and I'll talk to anybody.
Yeah.
So please reach out. I will help
Great
or
guy.
answer any question if I can.
Well, thanks so much for taking the time today, Joseph.
Yeah, Alec, you have a good night.
Yeah, thank you so much. And thank you to everyone who's part of the desk schooling community. It's been unbelievably, it's been unbelievable. It's taken off in ways I could never have imagined. I posted the first tweet when I thought, if I get 5 people, this would be fantastic. So thank you all so much.
Take care.